Hello to all my dear followers. Welcome to the second season of What If Naruto Fell in Love with Konan and Was Banished from Konoha? Please like, comment, and subscribe. It helps me a lot. Now then, enjoy!
Exile Chapter 12, Battles of More Than One Meaning. Naruto woke up much earlier than usual on the day he was scheduled to battle Raikage, sleeping next to his eternal roommate while in Kyomogakure, Samui. A week after the penultimate step in his relationship with the blonde ninja, the final one would be to introduce her to the rest of his future clan for official acceptance. It was true that he was worried about it. Konan and Yugao hadn't made it easy for him some time ago, and he wasn't sure how Kuratsuchi, who was in the same situation as Samui, would react. But for now, he put that aside, relaxing in the final moments before the battle. It would begin at noon in the Kyomogakure Stadium, where the Chunin exams were normally held. It was still 5:30 on his watch. Satisfied after checking the time, Naruto turned to his girlfriend, who was awkwardly pressing her head against his. The mercenary, chuckling at her predicament, moved closer, calming Samui's unconscious search for warmth, before letting out a small smile and a sigh. Naruto wrapped his arms around the blonde's waist, pulling her closer, and she, despite being unconscious, responded in kind. To his surprise, Samui took Naruto's right hand in her left, intertwining their fingers, which made her smile widen even more. Naruto brought his free hand to his girlfriend's cheek, gently caressing it and brushing aside the blonde hair that had fallen in front of her. "I'm truly lucky." Naruto gently pressed his forehead against hers. "I don't know what I did to deserve you, or anyone, really." Still smiling, he enjoyed watching her slow breathing. "Even though we've only known each other for a few months and started dating a few more." The peace he felt just watching her sleep was immense, as if everything in the world was right. "I love you, Sachan." At the shock, an almost invisible blush appeared on the woman's cheeks. She suddenly opened her eyes, causing Naruto to break out in a cold sweat. Samui maintained a neutral expression despite her cheeks still discreetly flushed. But when Naruto's gaze met hers, she understood everything, instantly calming him. "I love you too, Lolo." Out loud, he asked incredulously at his own stupidity. Without a word, Samui kissed him tenderly on the lips. At first, stunned, he hesitated to respond, but his response was simple and sincere. Naruto was amazed by the warm sensation of the kiss. He felt no lust or sensuality, even though he could clearly feel Samui's breasts pressing against his own body. It was different from kissing Yugao, Konan, or Kuratsuchi, although the truth was that kissing anyone was different because they were all different people, each with their own unique characteristics, yet he loved them so much. Still lying on her side, Samui ended the kiss to snuggle under Naruto's chin against her chest. It was infinitely pleasant to be held, a feeling she hadn't experienced since defining herself as a kunoichi, a weapon of Kyomogakure no Sato. And as a weapon, she had to remain sharp and useful, far removed from the feelings that hindered her path of progress. But with time, that resolve began to ring hollow, and finding Naruto was what she needed to find a new path. To be a weapon in duty for her village and to be loved in her man's arms. She soon felt the blonde man kiss the top of her head, and she responded by kissing his chest. She lifted her head, pulling away without breaking his embrace, to meet his eyes again, kissing him passionately once more. She felt him electrify every fiber of her being. An indescribable sensation that only ever happened in his arms. This time, Naruto pulled away, still smiling. "Looks like someone woke up feeling playful." She didn't respond, she simply kissed him again. It had been years without human touch, something she was determined to recapture every day by his side. And so the two blondes spent the morning nothing but kissing and holding each other in tight, intimate embraces. No sex, no other intention, just resting, a prelude to the battle that was to come. The stadium was packed. It was nostalgic for Naruto, as he hadn't been to an exhibition match since the Chunin exams in Konoha years ago. Except this time it wasn't a battle against mere Chunin from the village, it was against the Raikage himself. The stadium's construction was identical to Konoha's, perhaps due to its use in the exams. There must be some regulation governing its construction. The only difference was the style of the field. While Konoha Stadium had some trees, this one was entirely filled with various random mounds of rocks. Naruto stood in the center, awaiting the start of the match. In a special section of the stadium, Team Samui was accompanied by a gigantic man with equally impressive muscles, comparable only to the Raikage. But the blonde's attention was drawn to the blonde woman up above. He easily caught Samui's eye with his own, sending her a visual message of good luck. Naruto responded with a broad smile, causing her to blush slightly. It was then that the main gate of the stadium opened, revealing the Raikage. He was hatless, his bare chest revealing every muscle perfectly developed to an extraordinary degree. The only visible parts of his attire were his belt and enormous gold bracelets. His mere presence commanded respect. It was then that a Jounin appeared right in front of him, to be precise, the person he had saved months ago and had never seen again. The Jinchuriki who possessed the two-tailed beast. Uzumaki Naruto, right? The woman asked. Ni Yujito, she replied, confirming the same. I'm glad you're all right. Yes, about that. Yujito's expression turned somewhat sinister. Don't make me look bad so quickly, after all, you saved me against two S-rank ninjas. At least fight for a few minutes before I beat you senseless. Are you implying I'm going to lose? Ha! If I'm going to fight, it's going to be to win, I don't care if he's the Raikage, believe it. He replied affirmatively, somewhat offended by Yujito's words. Did they have that much faith in their leader, or was he really that strong? Fine, it's your choice, but don't say I didn't warn you. He said in a tone, as if addressing a small child. He quickly distanced himself, turning to the audience. O was already standing beside them. We now have both opponents present. We can begin the exhibition match between our beloved and powerful Raikage, A. The crowd roared at the introduction of their leader, almost intimidating Naruto. And the apprentice of the Sannin, Jiraiya, and the son of Konoha's knight Senko, the fourth Hokage, Namikaze Minato. Uzumaki Naruto. To the blonde boy's surprise, the crowd roared again in total excitement. The two opponents distanced themselves, assuming their fighting stances. Are both of you ready? Yujito asked. They both responded with a slight pause, more focused on each other's movements than on her. Begin. Unlike the Chunin exams that Naruto was recording, Yujito didn't stay in the arena, she simply used a shunshin to reach the higher ground where she was observing the mysterious figure alongside Team Samui. Naruto was forced to take a step back in surprise. His sense of electric aura was hitting his mind like never before. The Raikage's electric aura is increasing, it already far surpasses mine, and it's still growing. If it keeps going like this. The mercenary thought to himself in alarm. It was then that those present in Kumogakure witnessed something they never expected to see in this fight, something Naruto was completely unaware of. The elemental chakra of lightning was visible on his opponent, covering him like a body shield. Armor, he said aloud in surprise. I want to fight, against that thing they call senjutsu. That's what the village leader demanded of Naruto. Come on, show me, or I'll defeat you with a single blow. But Naruto was still in a state of shock. No doubt about it, his mastery of lightning release chakra is greater than mine. He finally managed to smile. Yes, I see I can't win if I don't use it. The fingers of Naruto's right hand glowed with accumulated chakra, each one displaying a different kanji. Uzumaki Fuin, Gyaku Kushios no Jutsu. As Naruto's fingers struck the ground, a burst of smoke erupted, revealing another Naruto in the lotus position. It was a rehearsal for the members of Team Samui. What's that? Yujito asked. That's how I save you, according to what he explained to us, Samui said quietly. Before Yujito could ask what she meant, the summoned Naruto dissipated into another cluster. The blonde boy's appearance changed slightly, revealing his toad eyes, and he resumed his initial position in Kawazu Kumite. A/N, Toad Kata. I can sense his chakra emanating, but somehow it feels different, A thought, observing his opponent with a slight smile. Yes, I can sense your power, but let's see what you think when you see my true speed. Erobo. The Raikage practically vanished. The next time Naruto saw him, his elbow slammed into Naruto's body, sending him crashing into the rocks behind him and embedded in the wall. That was embarrassing, Yujito said, having announced it to the blonde boy. This isn't over yet, Samui replied, somewhat surprised by the unexpected blow. Karui and Omoi looked optimistic, being the team that had seen Naruto capable of in real combat. A blow like that wouldn't have finished him off in Sage mode. I was hoping this would last a little longer, A replied, seeing how easily the supposed sage had fallen for it. Who says this is over? Came the voice from the depths where Naruto had been embedded. A left arm emerged from the wall, followed by a right. With both arms free, he managed to tear himself away. I admit, that hurt. Naruto shifted back into Kawazu Kumite. But it won't work again. Are you implying you saw me coming? Not even the Sharingan could perceive this speed, but if you're so eager to test it. Erobo. The Raikage vanished again, reappearing in front of the blonde boy, but this time Naruto had his hand outstretched, holding A's elbow. Did you stop my elbow? Sage mode grants the user superhuman strength, as well as superhuman durability and accelerated regeneration, Naruto explained to the Raikage. But it also has an unforeseen side effect on my Kekkei Genkai, he added with a smile. Your Kekkei Genkai? The Raikage asked, now genuinely curious. If I recall correctly, only Uzumaki women possessed a Kekkei Genkai useful in battle, making them perfect Jinchuriki thanks to their special chakra, the village leader announced, awaiting clarification. The only thing all Uzumaki share is superhuman longevity and stamina. That's true, but it's not an old Uzumaki trait, it's a Kekkei Genkai that developed accidentally, Naruto explained. For some reason, my electrical aura strengthened beyond human limits, allowing me to manipulate electricity without using chakra. This also creates a problem, as it relies on my natural electrical storage capacity, which I've been training to slowly increase. Even then, the electrical energy I release from my body is quickly depleted. I can recharge myself using the atmosphere around me, but it takes a long time. This changes when I enter Sage mode. Being in sync with nature and able to sense natural energy allows me to recharge at an astonishing rate. That's something I didn't know, Samui confessed. That means the attack I used to defeat the mercenaries was your Kekkei Genkai. Karui shouted, recording that scene perfectly. Let's see how strong your Kekkei Genkai is against my lightning release. A/N, lightning release armor. In response, Naruto used his Toad Taijutsu to counterattack. He quickly aimed a punch at the Raikage's face, but the Raikage easily dodged it by moving his head to the left. What he didn't expect was that a collateral strike from his arm had also been delivered. Matching the power with which Naruto had been struck earlier, A was sent flying to the opposite side of the wall, even while wearing his lightning release armor. He got up from the rubble again, unharmed. What was that? He asked, confused. It had truly been a powerful blow. You wanted to try Senjutsu? That was pure manipulation of natural energy, Senjutsu in its purest form. I explained quickly. Now we begin for real. Yes, this is getting interesting. The Raikage was truly excited for the fight. He soon disappeared, reappearing face to face with the blonde boy again. Unexpectedly, he grabbed Naruto's head in his gigantic hands and dragged him across the ground, leaving a trail in the rocky soil. Unfazed, Naruto grabbed the Raikage's arm from the ground, lifting his feet to deliver a double kick that sent him flying into the air and crashing into the nearby wall. Once again, the Raikage emerged unscathed. Those are the only moves you can stop me with. As long as my speed is greater than yours, I'll always strike first. He boasted, vanishing as usual and reappearing in front of Naruto again. The only problem was that he missed his punch, dodging it with the same kind of speed as the Raikage. Naruto simply disappeared and, with a crackling sound, reappeared just a step to the side, enough to evade the punch. This time it was his turn to land a direct blow to the Raikage's stomach first, but beyond knocking him down, it failed to penetrate the armor. You truly possess immense strength, but my defense is far too thick for your blows to penetrate. A replied, grabbing Naruto by the shoulders and lifting him up before slamming him to the ground. Raiga Bomu. With a colossal explosion of thunder, Naruto was crammed into a gigantic crater. I think I overdid it a bit, he said, remembering that no one had ever survived his attack before. He hoped he hadn't killed him. The audience also watched the situation in horror. The mercenary, about whom there were so many rumors, was indeed powerful, but not powerful enough to withstand a direct attack of that magnitude. Samui simply stared blankly at the scene when suddenly, an electromagnetic wave began to emanate from the crater, slightly stunning the Raikage, who was still holding Naruto's body buried deep within. Soon a second wave emerged, pushing the Raikage a little further. Then, a succession of waves distanced the Raikage from the crater, each wave increasing in speed as Naruto rose from the crater, launching them from his hands, left, right, each time accelerating until the Raikage began to glow intensely. He soon lost traction on the ground, and when he realized it, he was floating. "What's happening?" he yelled. "I just electromagnetized you, but don't worry, it only lasts a few seconds. Just long enough to do this." Naruto leaped straight toward the floating Raikage. Senpo Futon, Rasengan. The double Rasengan jutsu easily pierced the armor, sending the Raikage flying several meters above the stadium. It terrified onlookers a few meters away. Surprised, fascinated, and mostly horrified, the Raikage got back to his feet. "How? My body is already very resilient due to my training. Your technique was enough to pierce my armor, but not enough to penetrate my skin. Although it was a good attempt, it went much further than anyone has ever gone." This was unfortunate for the blonde. Sage Mode successfully replenished his electrical capacity quickly, but at this rate, it was going to end sooner than expected. "Alright, I'll have to find another way to finish this." From his belt, summoning it to his hand with his electromagnetism, he drew and activated his wind release sword, dazzling everyone with its white flash thanks to natural chakra. Naruto swiftly transformed into his form 4, Ataru. "Ra!" he roared, spiraling toward the Raikage at tremendous speed. Naruto's lightning-fast sword slashes were blocked by the giant golden bracelets. The skill and speed of both were impressive. Naruto, in addition to utilizing the natural speed of Form 4, added his kinetic step with the intention of matching the Raikage speed. Metallic sound. Metallic sound. Naruto moved with superhuman agility, leaping and bounding, effectively disorienting the Raikage. Meanwhile, was astonished by Naruto's speed, which rivaled that of his own father, leaving the audience impressed. Time to end this. With a leap, using one of the Raikage's bracelets for leverage, he jumped over his head and landed behind him. Matched the speed, turning away before the blonde could land a single blow. Naruto repeated the maneuver using the other bracelet, then created a decisive distance. "Is that what you're going to do all the time, run away?" the Raikage asked, challenging the blonde to continue. "No, I'm simply changing my strategy." Naruto launched 5 sticky missiles at the Raikage. He moved out of their path with ease, but as they approached, they realized they were somehow being aimed at him. The worst happened when they reached a certain distance. Each missile fragmented into 3, sticking to the Raikage's skin and detonating in a sequence of 15 explosions. Once again, the Raikage was unharmed inside the smoke. "I admit he's strong, but my armor is stronger," the Raikage concluded. "Lose." Naruto replied, who was currently riding on his back. "When did you get here? You were moving at the same speed as me before." The Raikage demanded, surprised by such movement. "It's called kinetic step, it's similar to your armor, but it only increases my speed by the amount of electricity I possess, and while I'm in Sage Mode it's much greater, but all this travel plus the missiles exhaust me, that's why I plan to recharge." The blonde added with a smile, "Recharge? What do you mean?" The answer came quickly. The 100 lightning bolts that formed the Raikage's lightning armor began to be absorbed by Naruto. "What does this mean?" he shouted in surprise. "Your armor is just loose electricity. I can take any electrical energy source to recharge myself." "I think that explains it, Tebeo." Naruto clung on tightly, absorbing the Raikage's pure energy at great speed. Desperate, the Raikage began slamming him against a nearby wall repeatedly, but Naruto's stubbornness was stronger. In a couple of minutes, the Rakige's electric aura became almost transparent as he managed to break free from Naruto's grip on his back. But the damage was already done. A was nearly depleted of chakra, while Naruto had fully recharged his electrical power source. To finish. Step 1. Naruto concentrated on the ion particles in the air, electrically charging them from a distance. Ra! As if the sky had roared, a direct thunderbolt struck the Rakige, even on a clear day, which was impressive. When the light faded, it was revealed that he was still standing, crackling with electricity, but not thanks to his armor, it was merely the remnants of Naruto's attack. Step 2. To the weakened Rakige's surprise, his gold bracelets exploded simultaneously with a flash of blue electricity, cracking them enough to make them fall off his wrists. When? Of course, it had been while Naruto had evaded him by leaping over him, using his wrists as leverage, leaving behind explosive tags of his own invention. He was so surprised that he didn't even notice when Naruto stood before him with his wind-released chakra sword pointed directly at his chin. Step 3, the blonde man concluded with a smile. Heh heh. The Rakige laughed. His father used a very similar style when placing his seals. I suppose that's what surprised me, I can see a lot of him in this boy. A chuckled again. Yes, you win, Naruto. I can't continue. The crowd fell silent, awestruck by their powerful leader's admission. A few seconds of complete silence passed before the sound of applause filled the stadium. On the roof of the stands, a proud smile spread across his face as he applauded Jiraiya. Then Samui clapped, followed by Karui and Omoi. At that moment, everyone in the stadium joined in the clapping and shouts of profound excitement. During this moment of euphoria, Yujito reappeared in the arena. The winner of the exhibition match is Uzumaki Naruto. The crowd erupted even more in cheers, startling the blonde boy as he extinguished his wind-release sword. Jiraiya was next in the arena. Thank you for inviting me to this event, Rakige-sama, the white-haired man said sincerely. Jiraiya-sensei. Naruto shouted, just noticing it. Well done, Naruto. Not only have you mastered Sage Mode, but you've also progressed with your Kenjutsu and Fuinjutsu, applying them excellently in battle. You've surpassed me. Jiraiya patted the blonde boy on the back, causing him to laugh as well. Thanks, though I hope the ground's gotten a bit softer since the Rakige crashed into me. He joked. Why? A asked, doubtful of the blonde man's supposed joke. That's why. The instant Naruto's eyes returned to their blue color, he collapsed to the ground, exhausted and unconscious. Jiraiya managed to catch him by the shoulders before he hit the ground. It seemed that combining his Sage Mode and his Kekkei Genkai had pushed his body to its limits. Naruto-ku. I mean, is Naruto alright? A voice called from behind the two men and the unconscious youth. They both turned to find Samui. Jiraiya's nose flared, steam rising, his face contorted grotesquely as he pulled out his notebook and dropped Naruto to the ground. Naruto, she said worriedly, crouching down to cradle him against her chest, but he was completely unconscious. But for now, Jiraiya was too busy writing about the woman to pay attention to Naruto. Jiraiya wasn't a fool for being an admitted pervert. Just seeing the woman asking about his student made him figure everything out. First Yugao and now this woman, my student is a pro, I'm so proud. Does he have others? I haven't looked into it in a long time. The white-haired man wept with pride as he wrote in his notebook without shame or embarrassment. I'll be able to make a fortune, Ika exile. I could even release versions, yellow version and purple version. I'll sell millions, X. As strange as it may sound, Naruto woke up disoriented. Upon opening his eyes, it took him a couple of minutes to figure out where he was. His apartment in Kumogakure. What was odd was how warm and soft his pillow was and the two hands gently caressing his chest. Startled by this discovery, he looked up to meet Samui's gaze, slightly obstructed by her bust. Slightly embarrassed, he continued looking straight ahead. How long has it been since I fainted? Naruto asked. 3 days, but all of Kumogakure is talking about you, Samui replied with an amused look, observing how dazed Naruto still was. Undeterred, She continued stroking his chest, making the blond boy, who was lying on her lap, smile slightly. "This is a good way to wake up," he said, trying to get up, but due to lack of strength, he was about to fall back onto the bed, only to be saved by Samui. She hugged him from behind. "Amuchim. I take it back, this way is better," he added, feeling Samui's warmth surround him from behind, her chest serving as a pillow. He quickly sat up properly in bed, at Samui's eye level, and with just a quarter turn of his head, he surprised her by kissing her lips, which she responded to with a slight blush. "Oh, I'm so proud," Jiraiya shouted from the doorway. This caused Samui to suddenly jump away, sending Naruto tumbling to the floor, where he was slightly leaning over his girlfriend after losing his footing. Keep going, don't be shy," she pleaded with Jiraiya as she hurriedly scribbled her notes. "Ero Senin. You'd better hope no book with information about me, Samui, or Yugao turned up, you hear me?" Naruto growled from the ground. "It's lucky I don't know about Ko-chan or Kuro-chan, though I think Kuro-chan will be safe from his perversions. How are you supposed to know what I write if you never read my books?" the self-proclaimed super-perverted sage asked slyly, eliciting another grunt from Naruto. It was true, Naruto had never read one of his books. He didn't like them, and heaven help him if his girlfriends ever caught him reading one. "Anyway, the reason I'm here is to accompany you on your new training. It seems the Raikage already knew you'd win his approval." Jiraiya abruptly changed the subject. "And where would that be?" Naruto asked. "On Turtle Island," Samui interrupted. "It's common knowledge that both the Raikage and his brother trained there, and it was there that Killer Bee Sensei achieved complete control of his Biju." Naruto listened attentively to his girlfriend's explanation, but not everyone is so lucky. Jiraiya was too preoccupied with a certain part of the woman's anatomy. TT-sized Tsunade. "Ero Senin, if you don't stop staring at Sa-chan like that, you'll be the first to experience the Sage Mode Rasengan." Naruto growled in warning, causing Jiraiya to swallow hard and break out in a cold sweat. Samui almost smiled, remembering the regular Sage Mode Rasengan, which Naruto had used during a training session against Omoi some time ago. Needless to say, Karui still teases her about it to this day, since Omoi walked around looking ridiculous for over a week. Naruto entered the Raikage's office accompanied by Team Samui and Jiraiya. He was surprised to see, in addition to the Raikage himself and his usual assistant Mabui, the same man he had noticed during his battle against it. Large muscles, sunglasses, and many swords were the characteristics that could define the unknown man. "Yo-ho-ho Mr. 9, this is Killer Bee speaking. A/N, please excuse my rhymes, I'm not the best poet in the world, although I might make Killer Bee sound like himself," the Jinchuriki announced to the pair of new members in the Raikage's office. "Huh." Faced with the short phrase, which could easily be mistaken for a sound, a long silence fell over Naruto. If you make a measly rhyme." Samui's cold words were whispered in Naruto's ear, instantly incinerating the voice in his throat. Glancing sideways at his girlfriend, despite her impeccably static expression, her gaze conveyed a completely implicit meaning. No sex for a month, or worse, no sleeping together. That's what the blonde understood from her visually decoded message. My name is Uzumaki Naruto, good boy." Samui whispered back, causing an audible sigh of relief from Naruto. Jiraiya chuckled softly. "Whipped, he's lost all his manly pride," he thought to himself. Although on the other hand... Well, Jiraiya obviously noticed the implications and advantages, which were far more important than male pride. He's wiser than I am. The preparations for the trip are underway for the simple reason that there are 2 Jinchuriki traveling, so I have to increase security, the Raikage announced sternly. Furthermore, I understand that Naruto is still recovering from the stress of the battle. It was the sad truth. Combining his Sage Mode and his Kekkei Genkai to handle so much electrical power and expending it simultaneously, repeating the process so many times, had, to put it better, overloaded him in some way. You could say that his enhanced electric aura still hadn't adapted to the additional sensory system of Sage Mode, it wasn't fully developed and seriously unprepared for such a long battle. Something Naruto was paying dearly for at that moment. Traveling while weakened, with potential confrontations with Akatsuki, would be dangerous, and training in that state to master a third energy source, the Nine Tails, would be even more dangerous. Although technically there are 4, counting his own chakra system. According to the doctors, Naruto should have his power regulated within a week, then they will set sail for Turtle Island immediately. Those going, in addition to Naruto, Jiraiya, and Killer Bee, will be Team Samui, Omoi, and Karui. Is that clear? The group nodded. Good, Naruto, you know. No training this week, just rest. Naruto nodded, then started to leave with the rest of the group, but was stopped by a few final words from the Raikage. Before I forget. I saw it in the battle. You really are your father's son. Smiling happily at the Raikage's comment, Naruto left the office. Naruto arrived at the apartment ready to sleep for another long while. He had a week to face what was coming and planned to rest as much as possible. He calmly went to the pantry looking for some instant ramen to eat before going to sleep. However, when he turned on the light to see inside the place, a light that illuminates both the kitchen and the dining room, he saw 3 people sitting at the dining table. Incredulous at what he saw, he simply turned his head toward the kitchen counter, which had a small mirrored ornament in front of it. There, he clearly saw his own reflection and those of the people still seated in the dining room. The shock was so profound that the word surprise seemed almost an afterthought. For a moment, he saw his reflection raise its hand toward him, signaling him to walk away, saying, "I'll leave you alone." He rubbed his eyes to make sure his reflection was still there, and it was. Then he turned to look at the 3 of them sitting in his living room. I gasped, realizing it wasn't a dream. There they were. Samui, who had mysteriously said earlier that she was returning to her apartment, was clearly lying. But she wasn't the one he was afraid of, or at least not her alone. Seated to his left and right, respectively, were Yugao and Konan. Hokage Gigi, who art in heaven, I'll see you soon. That was all he could think. Hello. But silence still hung between them. Not again. He cursed himself, history was repeating itself. When did you arrive? 3 days ago, Yugao replied. Does Jiraiya-sensei know that Ko-chan is here? Naruto asked, horrified by his possible answer. No, I'm a member of Akatsuki, and I know Jiraiya-sensei's sensory methods. He has no idea I'm here. That was a weight lifted from his shoulders. He still wasn't ready to reveal that one of his girlfriends was his former student, nor was he prepared to explain Pain's plan to keep Konan young using the Rinnegan's life-controlling ability. I mean, a woman with the mental age of over 35 possessing the body of a woman under 25, allowing her to maintain her full strength in the prime of her life, was difficult to explain. A/N, that was my only solution to keep Konan within a reasonable age range. The idea is that they shouldn't be more than 10 years apart in age, and have they known each other for a long time? Naruto asked again. 3 days as usual. Samui contest this time. Why the hell did I fall in love with 3 ice queens? Naruto screamed in his mind as he saw the neutral expression staring at him. For a moment, he felt naked under their gazes, as if he could pierce through any defensive jutsu, and it was a horrible feeling. Calm down, Naruto, you have to stay strong. You looked Orochimaru straight in the eyes, you yelled right in the face of the Nine Tails. This is a piece of cake, he told himself, but their stares remained, and for a moment he thought he was going to spontaneously combust, burned alive under the direct gaze of those women. No, I can't do it, my legs are starting to give way, my will is leaving me. Stay strong, Naruto. Stay strong. He remembered Itachi's Mangekyo Sharingan with his Amaterasu, or at least that's the name Konan had described it to. He had seen it when he first met Itachi and Kisame, that fire that couldn't be extinguished. At this moment, he felt as if he were being attacked with it. That's enough. I give up. Naruto shouted, falling to his knees in utter defeat. What do you want? He pleaded. How long was it? Konan asked. 30 seconds and it collapsed like a house of cards, Yugao replied. I was betting on more. Samui finished. Huh, was all Naruto could manage to say in the face of this shocking information. That's when the three women burst out laughing. Wait, you planned all this? The blonde boy asked, horrified. And you've only known each other for 3 days? Well, it's true that we met in person 3 days ago, Konan began, but we've been in contact for over a week. Yugao finished. Since when? She repeated the question, surprised. After you tell me about the clan members, Samui said. While you weren't looking, I took out one of your summoning seals for messenger toads. You told me you used them to stay in touch with Konan and Yugao since you don't have a toad contract. I summoned a toad using it and sent a message to each of them. I told them about your battle against the Raikage and your decision to come. Naruto's jaw dropped, on the verge of dislocating. We hit it off immediately during the letters, Yugao continued. It seems you already have a similar programmed model of us in your search, huh? Yugao said slyly as she seductively rose from her seat, using her index finger to close the blonde's jaw and leaning close to his right ear, resting her head on his right shoulder. I wonder how similar Kuratsuchi will be. Continuing their strange game, Konan stood up and walked seductively toward him, repeating the same action. Though perhaps we should wait and see who else you plan to add to our clan. Synchronized with Yugao, they both gently bit Naruto's earlobes, causing an involuntary spasm from the blonde boy. But for now, I think we have to get used to the idea. With the same actions and sensuality as before, Samui positioned herself in front of the blonde man, between Yugao and Konan. And according to the Raikage orders, we have a week to investigate much more thoroughly. Samui teased with her breath near the blonde man's lips, which soon parted slightly, while the purple-haired and blue-haired women traced the path from his earlobe to his neck, then moved to his cheeks and his fox-like sideburns. For a moment, Naruto thought he was going to faint, because just like with Konan and Yugao, he hadn't realized when he'd reached the edge of the large bed in his room, already completely naked. They, meanwhile, were taking their time kissing his lips, neck, and chest while undressing him and themselves. Naruto only saw a blurry combination of blue, purple, and yellow that practically engulfed him in pure heat. The next time Naruto regained consciousness, he was lying in bed, completely naked, just like them. And as his body and senses adjusted to this new level of intensity, he began to respond more decisively. He had to show them what the man who defeated the Raikage was made of. Soon the room was filled with the sounds of kisses, moans, giggles, and whispers that grew in pace and intensity, satisfactorily contained by the privacy seals placed throughout the apartment. Soon the moans revealed names and promises, requests and compliments that synchronized with the movement of the bed against the wall. Sounds of the experience of giving and receiving, of the exchange of affection within a developing clan, full of satisfying experimentation, desire, and love, banishing the loneliness etched in the memories of each of those present, a loneliness that each possessed for different reasons. The minutes stretched into hours as the sound began to slow and fade, leaving only the lingering essence of what had happened as evidence of the act. The lust had evaporated satisfactorily, leaving behind the pure kisses of love, affection, and care that their bodies craved after the act. And so Naruto ended up surrounded and embraced by his clan. 3 women who had given him something special together, and which he returned in kind. To his left, Samui, to his right, Konan, and above him, Yugao. The 3 rested their heads against the blonde boy, basking in the warmth they had gathered, satisfied and fulfilled smiles on their faces. Who would have thought that being part of a clan could be so complementary and yet so solid? Feeling like they were part of something great. With a final sigh, Naruto enveloped them in a tight embrace, his gaze fixed on the yellow, blue, and purple hues of their hair, interwoven with exotic sapphire, shimmering amber, and deep chestnut tones. Each of them playfully struggled to stay awake for a few more seconds, only to surrender and snuggle against him, letting exhaustion and sleep claim them once the stress and tension had dissipated. He bestowed upon each of them a tender and lingering goodnight kiss, sensing the undeniable differences in their individual expressions. Despite the dawning sky visible through the curtains, in a matter of seconds, the 5 members of the new clan were fast asleep. Chapter 13, When Fury Comes at Night. Exile Chapter 13, When Fury Comes at Night. This would be one of those memories he would store, framed in his mind, until the day he stopped breathing. Feeling the sensitive, soft skin of the women against him, leaning against him, finding a safe place in the world to rest. Feeling their breaths in a divine chorus, inhaling their scent, which at that moment mingled with his sweat on them and on him. It was intoxicating and, at the same time, an addiction that would haunt him forever. "Are you awake?" Yugao asked, lying on his chest. He could feel her breasts pressing against his ribcage, though he could actually feel all three pairs of breasts pressing against him in different places. It was an involuntary feeling of tension. Noticing the look on the purple-haired girl's face, he could see a hint of amusement. "Did you sleep well, do you have to ask? It was one of the best nights and awakenings of my pathetic existence." He replied, still partially incredulous that it had all happened just a couple of hours ago. Yugao responded by kissing him chastely on the lips as a welcoming greeting, which Naruto fervently returned. "How did you two agree to this? A woman has to keep some secrets from her man. Besides, Konan and I were already enjoying ourselves quite a bit with you, and I needed to take it to the next level," Yugao replied between kisses. "I can't say I didn't enjoy it," she concluded in a rather seductive tone. That was all it took for the blonde man to relive the images of them from the previous night. In their hunger for lust, Konan and Yugao could be quite impressionable and daring when it came to experimentation. The night before, Samui had emerged as belonging to the same group. Between his girlfriend's seductive demeanor and the memories of that glorious night, a certain part of the blonde's anatomy, located in his groin, began to stir. Yugao was perfectly positioned to feel this arousal, causing her to smile during their kissing session. Soon, Naruto felt the sweet touch of Konan's lips against his neck, which elicited an involuntary, deep moan. To complete the surprises of this incredible dawn in Naruto Uzumaki's life, another play of lips, those that Naruto recognized as Samui's soft mouth, began to play with his right earlobe, moistening it and moving it in sync with her tongue. "If you think last night was one of your best nights," Konan began, the phrase pressed against his neck, "this morning deserves to be one of your best." Samui finished. At that moment, three feminine hands, belonging to three different women present, squeezed and grabbed the blonde man's rigid crotch, causing him to scream from the sensation of pleasure obtained, only for that scream to be smothered by Yugao's tongue, which took the opportunity to enter Naruto's in a new invasion, being the starting point for one of the most memorable and hectic mornings for him with only one thought in his mind. "They can scare me to death just by looking at me, but there's no doubt I love them, Tebeo." Forgetting that this was only the first day of a long 7 days, Naruto, along with Team Samui and Jiraiya, gazed in awe at the structure before them, its form perfectly sculpted from the 8 tails, the beast's head serving as both the main adornment and the entrance. The reason Killer Bee's students were so surprised was that it was their first time visiting this place. Seeing their sensei's home was a great honor for the trio. Karui and Omoi gazed in wonder at the structure with great respect, while Samui observed it with only a small smile. Surprise wasn't necessary, as it would be something typical of their sensei's style. Jiraiya and Naruto watched with surprise, though the blonde felt a certain displeasure. He would surely never build a house in the shape of the Kyubi, even though he was somewhat envious of Killer Bee's connection to his inner Biju. As the place was presented to the visitors, accompanied by several rhymes given to them by Killer Bee, each was shown their own room for their stay. Naruto was soon resting in a warm bed after that hellish experience he'd endured on the ship. He could never get a good night's sleep with all that movement, and he needed all the time he could get to prepare for his next training session. The instant he managed to close his eyes, he heard a knock on his door. Annoyed at having his rest interrupted, he opened the door, ready to unleash a string of shouts at whoever was behind it, whom he strongly believed to be Jiraiya for some ridiculous reason. Before he could even manage a shout or a sound, a body wrapped around him. Because of the woman's well-developed bust pressed against his chest and the scent she was giving off, he quickly recognized her. "Sachan?" Naruto asked, surprised. "What's wrong?" Samui didn't answer, she simply broke free from his embrace, then took the blonde man's arm in her own and pulled him out of the gigantic bull-shaped mansion. The mercenary was confused as they walked through the darkness of the night, without a clear destination. He tried to ask Samui, but she was too busy smiling slightly as she held her boyfriend's arm. This made Naruto smile in the same way. She simply wanted to be in his company, feeling the human touch and his warm presence. In the past, she was very solitary and quite cold, simply because she distanced herself from the world and from people to fully transform into the weapon Kyumogakure needed and that she herself desired to be. Even in her early days, she deliberately kept her distance from Karui and Omoi during her genin training under her instructor, Killer B. She always told herself that she didn't need contact with another human, that ninjas were merely weapons to be used, and that distractions like friendship or love would lead to her death. All sense of her own words and self-imposed meaning was shattered when she met Uzumaki Naruto, the boy who openly revealed to her the source of her strength and who appeared countless times throughout her long missions. Soon Naruto became a walking paradox, a mystery waiting to be unraveled. Soon that mystery would lead her to love him not only as a friend, but also as a lover and a definite presence in her future. And now she shared one of life's simple moments in his company, the ease of walking side by side with that special someone, feeling his presence, warmth, security, and comfort. Feeling that nothing else in this world mattered. That was what Naruto took to understand during the silent minutes that passed. Relaxing, he played along with his girlfriend. With a swift movement, he slipped his right arm over Samui's shoulder so she leaned down and rested her head next to his, while using his free hand to take her other hand. With genuine smiles, they continued on their way in comfortable silence, bathed in the soft moonlight. They both arrived at a stream, sitting at the foot of a nearby tree, still in each other's warm embrace. Soon Samui kissed the blonde man's cheek. "Thank you, I need to get away from it all," Naruto responded by giving her a sensible kiss on the lips. "You know you don't have to ask, I'm yours 24/7. With that, the pair of blondes continued their long kissing session. Samui approached the blonde by sitting on his lap with her legs wrapped around his hips, a rather compromising position that they both continued, kissing without seeking anything further, simply enjoying the added heat of their hormones. Soon, the silhouette of a shadow in the moonlight abruptly halted their fun. Alarmed, they searched for the stranger among the trees, bushes, and other nearby vegetation, but found no clues to explain the shadow. They were about to lower their guard again to resume their unfinished tasks when they spotted the shadow once more. This time, standing upright, they could see where it came from. Naruto, who this time focused on his electrical sensor, searched for electrical auras around them. There hadn't been any other living beings on the ground besides them. The blonde man fixed his gaze high in the sky. The absolute darkness was the perfect cover for the unknown stranger. That electric aura, which was not human, was no longer within the range his electrical sensing ability could detect, and without detecting any chakra emission from it, he couldn't locate it with his sage mode. Whatever it was, it slipped through his fingers with impunity. This is impossible, truly impossible, Naruto thought, breathing heavily. Initially, this day wasn't one of Naruto's best. After last night's fiasco with that unidentified spy, followed by a comfortingly long make-out session with his beloved girlfriend that went nowhere, he woke up the next morning to be literally awakened by a frog trying to get into his mouth. That's right. A frog trying to get into his mouth. His girlfriend, who was sleeping peacefully just inches away in her own bed, didn't seem to notice. His eyes still wide with bewilderment from this strange occurrence, he looked around for the culprit, only to find Jiraiya standing by the bed with a satisfied smile on his face. With a final effort from the summoned animal, it managed to enter his mouth. Following this, Jiraiya explained the truth behind it. It seemed that Jiraiya had obtained the key to the Kyubi seal, and the white-haired man had Naruto sign it while he slept, much to the blonde's fury. However, revenge was swift when Samui hugged the blonde while he was still asleep, unintentionally revealing her ample bust beneath her nightgown as it bumped against her boyfriend's chest. At this accidental sight, Jiraiya jumped back from a gush of blood from his nose that caused him to crash through the window behind him, falling from the second floor. Naruto suddenly became enraged at his sensei's perverted remark about his girlfriend. After this, he was brought to his current situation. Killer B was disrupting his first step toward mastering the Biju chakra. To achieve this, he had to seize its power by deliberately opening the fox's seal, but before that, he had to manage the negative emotions that the Kyubi would use against him to take control of his body. That was the difficult part. Now he sat by a special waterfall where he meditated to confront his concentration of negative thoughts. It was impossible. His strength was his own, he couldn't beat him in a fight on equal terms, and this was already his third attempt. He might not be physically harmed, but the wounds he inflicted on his subconscious self were transferred in the form of stress and mental exhaustion. Sooner or later, he would reach his limit. He didn't like fighting and listening to his negative self at all, even though he could still undo its dark words without even thinking about it. Konoha could burn in flames so easily in my hands. The sinister tone of the voice sent shivers down his spine, not only because of the genuine malice he heard in his own voice, but also because it sounded exactly like Sasuke's. That individual would be the result of having surrendered to his inner hatred, the outcome if the roles had been reversed at the Valley of the End, if Naruto had deserted Konoha with Sasuke trying to stop him. That thought alone was enough to fill him with dread. It's not me. I could have been, but I'm not. He repeated the words he told himself before each confrontation with his hatred, because he felt that with each encounter he was losing strength, that this individual could be real, and that in truth, alongside this individual, the Kyuubi would be free. It's not me, he shouted, confirming a fact that had seemed so abstract. Naruto-kun. The blonde boy heard his girlfriend's comforting words. She had been with him since the beginning of his training, even though hours had passed. What's wrong? She sounded worried, though Naruto gave her no reason to think otherwise. I'm sorry. The mercenary replied, lowering his head. The woman standing before him could see the deep terror in his eyes. Of course, she was aware of the training given by his former sensei, but she couldn't imagine what it would be like to confront the meaning of all the hatred he had accumulated inside. That's enough. Samui hugged him. I think that was enough for one day, your mind must be exhausted. But her boyfriend remained motionless. Naruto-kun, she asked, worried by his lack of response. I'm a monster. He murmured, seeing that person in his mind over and over again, using both hands to cover his face. No, you're not. Remember what Killer Bee Sensei told you. That's the representation of all your negative side, but it doesn't reflect who you truly are, Samui asserted. A monster wouldn't even reflect a passion as great as yours, or your capacity for forgiveness, or for love, because that's what I see reflected in your eyes every time you see me or Konan or Yugao. Those feelings can't be hidden. You wouldn't fool me. She tried to dissuade the blonde from Naruto's decadent thoughts, but it didn't work. Finally, it ended with something a bit more drastic. Suddenly, she grabbed the collar of his jacket, pulling him toward her and roughly intercepting his lips with her own. Naruto managed to escape all his thoughts with this, feeling the forceful entry of his girlfriend's warmth. He didn't hesitate to respond in kind, causing Naruto to fall from the small patch of land jutting out of the water into the lake, with Samui on top of him. They continued kissing, not caring if they were soaked or barely touching in the shallow water. The mercenary felt comforted by his girlfriend's affectionate gesture, reminding him of the truth behind it all. They kissed for minutes, oblivious to everything else, growing ever more intimate, as the sun dipped below the horizon after a long day. The truth was, Naruto had been searching his subconscious for hours, repeatedly trying to find a way to defeat his inner hatred, but nothing had worked. Even if he fought using all his acquired skill and knowledge, it would respond with equal skill and strength, making it clear that they were one and the same. Naruto brushed Samui's short, wet hair aside, wiping her face. She responded in kind, instantly caressing the lines on his face. Never forget who you are. The ninja from Kumogakure placed one hand on his chest, feeling his strong heartbeat. No matter what others say, you're not a monster. Seeing the affectionate look in Samui's eyes, Naruto moved to her lips, kissing her as he turned her over so he was on top of her. She moaned in the intimate heat of the atmosphere. A few more minutes passed before Naruto lifted her, and she wrapped her legs around his hips, bringing them much closer. Now standing, Naruto led Samui against a tree, eager to leave the cold water unfinished. With Killer Bee having left hours ago, preoccupied with finding new rhymes in the reluctant company of Karui and Omoi, Samui began undressing Naruto, who responded in kind. Slowly and deliberately, moans escaped between kisses as they sought contact with each other. Soon the tree became the counterweight to the thrusts the two blondes produced in harmony. The blonde found himself buried between Samui's breasts, while she held his head tightly, trying to pull him even closer if possible. Their actions, which lasted almost half an hour, were completely immersed in their passion and mutual love, as they shifted positions. Sachan, the man murmured against her lips, wanting to feel her closer, even though it wasn't possible. He felt her entire body pressed against him, including her breasts moving rhythmically against his chest. Naruto slowly lost control with his thrusts, which never seemed enough, so he quickened them. Sachan, he repeated, calling her name exclusively, Naruto-kun. She greeted him with open arms. A monster wouldn't call me like this, on. Samui tried to speak between sighs and thrusts. She managed to pull away slightly, looking into his eyes as long as they could see her movements. A monster would never. Samui released him willingly, feeling Naruto so deep inside her. Never look at me. This time she kissed him, their tongues intertwining for a few seconds. Like you do now. On. Again she clung to him, burying him between her breasts, wanting to feel him close. A monster couldn't love me like you do now. She tried to pull away, feeling the tree bark against her, but she didn't care. She sought Naruto's eyes once more. Naruto watched her intently, savoring her sincere gaze as he continued thrusting. Until this moment, his hands had been against the tree for support, but he soon placed them on Samui. One on her back and the other beneath her right thigh. The added closeness drew another cry from the blonde, overwhelmed with pleasure, which Naruto observed and listened to, missing nothing, giving him the opportunity to slip his tongue into her mouth. Samui's taste was intoxicating, something he could live on forever. So intense was the satisfaction that they both began to breathe through their noses, opening their eyes to seek each other's gaze during their battle of tongues. In a few seconds, Naruto had complete control over her mouth, letting himself be guided by his tongue. She moaned, showing no displeasure at being led. Soon they were forced to separate, leaving the taste of Samui's nectar lingering on Naruto. Lust clouded Naruto's mind, and driven by his hunger for the blonde, he gently bit her neck. She moaned with pleasure as Naruto's mouth buried itself against her skin. She didn't care, she wanted to be his, to surrender herself completely. It was fantastic, nothing better could exist. They could both feel themselves slowly reaching their peak. Accelerating and asking for more from each other with every second, and the other so gladly giving it. With a final cry from Samui, which was smothered by Naruto's own mouth, the thrusting and movement ceased, maintaining their positions. Naruto remained joined to Samui, their now sweat-drenched bodies resting against each other in a comforting embrace. Their foreheads gently touched, allowing them to clearly see each other's eyes. Never forget that, Naruto-kun, she made him promise, her eyes filled with the seriousness of her own. She felt content, feeling Naruto's warmth inside her, surrendering to the subsequent ecstasy, heightening her senses to feel their sweat intensifying the sensation of their touch. I'll never do that, Sachan. He replied, pulling back slightly to kiss her forehead, an act that brought a faint smile to the blonde's face. Feeling Naruto still inside her, slowly growing within her, she let out an involuntary moan along with a gentle thrust, seeking more, wanting and desiring more. Following the laws of cause and reaction, Naruto thrust in his favor, now seeing her eyes glaze over at the contact. The thrusts slowly increased in speed again, beginning another encounter of unbridled passion. It was late as the blonde mercenary strolled around Turtle Island. After finishing what he'd started in the forest, he returned to the comfort of his room, having effectively eliminated his frustrations, fears, and tensions thanks to the profound care of his beloved girlfriend. She had granted him the tranquility and peace of mind necessary to rest sufficiently by her side, which was always comfortable and almost impossible not to want. His rest was interrupted by a certain curiosity stemming from the previous night. Leaving Samui fast asleep, exhausted, relaxed, and content in their bedroom, he went in search of the silhouette he had seen the night before in the moonlight, even though it might be a futile search. There were hundreds of animals on this island. Entering Sage mode, he began tracking the chakra-infused entities on the island. It was astonishing how much life such a tiny island could hold compared to a continent. He searched for each entity individually. They were all large and powerful, perhaps that's why Killer Bee became so strong in the first place. Soon, one jumped off his sensor, moving high in the sky with incredible speed. Alerted by this, he focused his gaze on where the chakra entity had called out, but there was nothing there. Or at least, that's what it seemed. At times, certain stars vanished, but only for a fleeting moment. He still had another option. Using his electrical sensor, he illuminated the target's electric aura. To his surprise, the creature possessed a form unlike any other, endowed with astonishing speed and mastery of the sky. The surprise only intensified when this unknown animal launched a ball of intense blue flames at a random target in the dense forest. Swooping down, the creature seized its roasted prey and then soared high into the sky. Intrigued by his astonishing discovery, Naruto followed him through the jungle, memorizing both his aura and his electrical chakra. He made his way through the trees, but saw that he was slowly being pulled away. He momentarily deactivated his Sage mode to make fuller use of his electrical abilities, which still conflicted with his natural chakra. It wasn't time to risk injury and lose the opportunity to master the Ninetales chakra. Naruto accelerated and lengthened his leaps using his static jetpack. With static electricity coursing through his hands, the blonde-haired boy floated from tree to tree, accelerating enough to match the flying beast's pace. It was no surprise when he discovered that his target was hidden among some mountainous rocks in a sparsely populated area of the island, due to the scarcity of trees. Naruto carefully approached to see the animal that was eating its prey. Upon seeing it up close, he studied it closely. It was black with a slender, aerodynamic body, perfect for high-speed flight. It resembled an underdeveloped lizard with an oval face. What was most striking were its magnificent black wings. "Is that a dragon?" Naruto asked. In his surprise, he didn't notice he'd knocked over a rock, which alerted the creature he was observing with its highly developed hearing. The dragon immediately fixed its gaze on Naruto, its yellow eyes glowing with black in the center, and growled, almost whispering, revealing its 100 teeth. "Wow! Calm down, buddy, I'm not here to hurt you, Tebeo." The blonde boy tried to defend himself with his hands, but the dragon wasn't so pleased and attacked him directly with one of its blue fireballs. In defense, Naruto quickly launched an alpha missile in response, causing a massive explosion on impact. When the smoke cleared, the black dragon was gone. Naruto could still sense its chakra nearby, but he couldn't risk another encounter like this. The creature had intrigued him. He'd seen toads, slugs, and giant snakes, but never anything like this. With a new idea forming in his mind, a smile spreading across his face that hinted at the beginning of a prank, Naruto left the area, returning to Killer Bee's mansion, unaware that the dragon's curious eyes were watching him from afar. Naruto returned to the same area almost half an hour later, this time holding a scroll with a seal in his hand. Using his electric sensor, he quickly detected the dragon hidden among the rocks. "Hey, kid," the blonde boy called out, trying to get its attention. The dragon didn't hesitate to respond, looking at him with the same suspicious expression. "I didn't come to hurt you, look." Naruto carefully unfurled the scroll in front of the dragon, and with a little chakra, a dozen fish appeared. "I didn't think you'd like them, fish is all I could find in such a short time." The dragon observed the blonde man's intentions for a few seconds, wearily tempted by the food he offered. It was unfortunate that the animals of this place were so intelligent, having quickly learned his nocturnal hunting style. Little by little, he was running out of prey, now only finding a few small and scarce creatures to satisfy him daily. Carefully, he emerged from among the rocks, watching the stranger's movements as he approached the fish. Naruto remained still, trying not to give the dragon any reason to feel betrayed by the fleeting trust he had placed in his hands. Slowly demonstrating all his actions to the dragon, Naruto took one of the fish in his hand and raised it toward a strange animal or reptile. The target initially glared and growled, but quickly adjusted when it saw no further movement. Tempted by this, he took another slow step, which left him just a step away from the fish. The unknown animal or reptile's attitude changed abruptly, letting out a rather loud growl. Leaping back, it stared intently at the blonde's waist. He initially looked puzzled by its surprisingly hostile attitude. It took him a while to figure out that the problem lay with his ninja weapons. Somehow, the kunai, shuriken, and especially his chakra blades made it tense. Carefully, Naruto reached for his waist, lifting his jacket to reveal his concealed weapons. As he reached for them, the black dragon growled louder, lowering its stance and remaining on guard. Naruto initially froze in surprise, but slowly and successfully drew each weapon and sealed it within a scroll. "I won't hurt you, I promise," the mercenary swore sincerely. For the amusement of watching, the dragon sat down as if it were a pet, revealing a flat profile and a gaze that rivaled that of a puppy. Slowly, it approached the mercenary, opening its mouth to reveal its apparent complete lack of teeth. "Wow! I imagined someone of your kind would have." Suddenly, a full set of teeth appeared on the dragon, and with surprising speed, it devoured the fish, nearly tearing off its own arm. The dragon moved even closer to Naruto. "I brought you more, it's right there." Naruto pointed, but the dragon wasn't interested in where he was pointing. Strangely, the dragon's throat began to move, and to the mercenary's disgust, it regurgitated half the fish he had given him all over him. "Ugh!" he muttered. The dragon watched expectantly, observing the blonde's reaction, glancing first at the fish and then back at him repeatedly, sending the intended message. The dragon wanted Naruto to eat the offering, imbuing the event with some profound meaning. It was a curse for the mercenary. Refusing the offering would utterly offend the dragon, shattering any trust built that night. Well, the old toad and the old woman made far worse food than this. I doubt raw fish could be worse. With a supreme effort of courage, he ate half of the regurgitated fish and swallowed it down. He felt an urge to vomit, but he held it back with all his might. He had come too far to lose now. Trying to suppress his disgust and composure, Naruto flashed one of his fox-like grins. The dragon seemed curious and, on his first attempt, managed a smile of his own, revealing his lack of hidden teeth. Amused, the blonde boy tried to touch him, but before he could, the dragon switched to a growl and then flew several meters away, thwarting Naruto's second attempt at trust. However, he quickly noticed the dragon had left with his fish. Perhaps all was not lost. Not knowing what else to do to gain the strange creature's trust, he sat down on a rock and meditated to calm his mind. It was an exercise Fukasaku had forced upon him. He could still feel the blows of the stick on his shoulders or the sage toad's slimy tongue swirling around him to prevent him from falling into the abyss. Just thinking about it sent shivers down his spine. So he meditated. Now more than ever, he needed peace of mind not only to help with the dragon but also to find a way to overcome all his negative emotions. He remained in the lotus position for several minutes, oblivious to the rest of the world. Even the sky was lightening. Watching the minutes tick by, Naruto was about to get up when he noticed someone beside him. Opening his right eye slightly, he saw the dragon sitting in the same position, trying to mimic his posture. Managing to stifle a laugh and a look of surprise, he glanced sideways at the dragon, who was also glancing at him intermittently, but Naruto pretended not to see him. It was truly hilarious, like a puppy in a winged reptile costume. Soon their eyes met, and finding newfound confidence, the blonde boy moved his hand toward the dragon's face. The dragon growled again in an instant, causing Naruto to withdraw his hand. He tried twice more with the same result, until finally, in a desperate attempt, he lowered his head and sharpened his hand, waiting for something. With his eyes closed and his head bowed, the first thing he felt was the touch of the reptile's scaly skin. Startled by the touch, he looked up to meet the dragon's curious eyes, staring for several moments. Naruto held his hand to his nose as the dragon remained there for a few seconds. Exhaling air through its nostrils as if it were a slight sneeze, the creature rose into the sky, disappearing among the deep rocks. That was definitely progress, the blonde thought, excited for his next encounter with the dragon, but he would have to wait. Dawn was breaking, so the blonde decided to return to Samui and get some rest before continuing his training. Naruto opened his bedroom door, entering as quietly as possible so as not to wake Samly. He closed the door silently and headed towards his bed, but he hadn't taken a step before he heard a footstep behind the door he had just closed. "Where were you?" It was Samly, who was waiting awake wearing her pajamas, working on a surprise. Turning around like a trapped mouse, he answered Naruto somewhat nervously. "What kind of surprise?" his girlfriend asked, with an angry tone in her voice. "It wouldn't be a surprise if I told you, let's just say I found out it was what we saw last night." It was a half-hearted attempt to persuade her with a light introduction about his target. It seemed to work, because her face showed curiosity. "Are you hungry? Do you want breakfast?" Naruto persisted, looking for a way to change the subject, one of those subjects being his famous way of spoiling her. She seemed to relax at that, he could see a hint of interest in her eyes. "A massage?" I ask with a tiny, but not unnoticeable, touch of enthusiasm in my voice. "Bingo, Databeo," the blonde thought triumphantly, a foxy grin spreading across his face. "On the shoulders?" Of course. If there was one thing Samly knew for sure, it was that she could never refuse a shoulder massage from her boyfriend. His large, soft, yet strong hands possessed that divine touch that would completely erase any pain from her ample bosom. Smiling, while preparing breakfast with a shadow clone jutsu, she got to work. He, for his part, also enjoyed giving massages. They almost always guaranteed an exciting second round. The sun was setting again as Naruto let out a victorious sigh, accompanied by a genuine smile. He had done it, as simple as permanently letting go of his anger toward his past, because it was truly him, just another part of himself that he had refused to let go of until now. Looking toward the front of the waterfall, I noticed Jiraiya was there. All day before, he'd been investigating the Jinchuriki temple to learn how to control their own bijou. He hadn't expected that such careful systems and all that data could be properly analyzed. Now he saw his student, almost accomplished, as if he had truly matured. It seemed that Killer Bee's training had worked. All of this was confirmed by his definitive tone of voice, demonstrating his newfound resolve. "I'm ready. What's next?"